Hello and welcome to this edition of Extension Ed Talks. I am Erin Petersilie, the Family and Consumer Science Agent from the Walnut Creek District.
And I'm Anna Schremmer from the Phillips Ricks Extension District. I'm the Family Consumer Science Agent there.
And for this episode, we are going to talk specifically to some of you youngsters as you're getting ready to maybe do some of those first sewing projects and some ideas for first sewing projects and how to complete some of those sort of things.
Yes, I've had several come in already this year and say, what are some simple projects that we can do? And so I brought some of my kids' first projects. You know, as a mom, I have to save everything. So, but I first started them out when they just first joined 4-H, and I started them with pillows, and I got pillow forms, and then we covered them. But to make it even more special, I went ahead and had the pictures of the cattle that they were showing put on, and then they pretty much just sewed straight seams around. Now this one, it was a little harder. It was for my older daughter. She sewed her ribbons that she received that year from the different shows. That was their first projects. Then they went on to something a little bit more difficult. We made this quillo, and I should say one of them made the quillo. And it's very nice because they can make a pocket. They learn how to make a pocket, how to turn things around, sew a pocket on, and it's just really two big pieces of material put together, and then we tied it. So it was and they folded up, they took it to track meets, the basketball games, in the car, they slept with it. So there was, they used it a lot. Then my youngest one, this is a great first, you know, a couple of years down the road. It's just squares that you put together, and then, so they didn't have to bind it and learn all of that. We did the,
Oh, the rag quilt.
The rag quilt, yes, that name escaped me. And they had to do the X's, and so they went on with it. And then my older one, of course, being K-State fans, we found a K-State quilt kit. It was not a rag quilt, but we turned it into a rag quilt. So it has it had a little bit more difficulty where she had to follow the edge and sew around, and then of course it was all the squares with the X's in it. A lot of good straight stitching. Anything straight stitching is excellent for their first projects.
So keeping it simple is very important, and you know, today we were having a conversation. We are 90 days away from my kids' county fair. Okay, so the countdown is on for projects, and guys, it doesn't always have to be about making sure that you send something to the county fair.
Right.
Yes, for a lot of you, if you're a 4-H'er, great, it may work. For those that aren't, open class works well, but at some point we need to do this for the enjoyment of doing things, and that is really a project that we're going to work on today, and we'll give you some ideas of ways that you can change this and make it a little more difficult, or how to keep it very simple. And with that today, we are going to work with the mineral bag purses, or the feed sack purses. A lot of you may be feeding some animals and having these, they're plastic, okay, so they're all weather, they're going to wear really, really well, and that's what we're going to do to be able to make these bags that we're going to start with. So this is one a 4-H'er of mine did in Ness County, and she has rabbits. So she went and found, you know, a neat rabbit bag, and there are all sorts of neat bags.
Oh,
if you,
there are.
I mean, Orschelins. I've been told the bird bags are really. That's what my FCE ladies really like, is, you know, cardinals and all sorts of things. But yeah, there's some really, really neat feed bags out there. And when you're looking for what we're going to do, I don't know if you can see the inside. They kind of have a weave to them, but we need to make sure it's fairly tightly weaved so that it's going to hold together. Sometimes when we get into seed sacks, like if we are, you know, CRP grass or those sort of things, they're just too loosely woven to be able to do something with. But these work really, really well. So she was feeding, obviously, her rabbits, but what we're going to work with today is a mineral bag that's one of my local producers. This is just what she happens to use for mineral for her cattle. One thing that people really do like to use is dog food bags or cat food. Okay, because they're really, really cute. But something that you really need to think about with them is that the oil from the food, and it's got a smell to it as well. It may be very difficult to get off of it from the inside. Some of them are lined with a paper sack, so just get that pulled out. You may need to do some washing with this. So go outside. We've had some warm weather. Spray them off. Get them
Can you
started.
put them in your washing machine?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't tried. Can you?
I don't know. I would almost hate to have some of that in my washing machine.
Yes, because this is going to be this is really going to be kind of dirty. So you are going to want to be in a place that it's okay to get some mineral around and all those sort of things. I have 2 young kids. I say, go get the hose and go get the hose and start doing that.
I could just see some people asking me, well, can I just throw them in the washing machine? And you probably could, but you're going to have a lot of oils and stuff, as you said, from that. And you may want to go ahead and wash them outside first. So, but yes, I have seen some beautiful horse feed, and I probably ought to make one for my daughter with the horse on it.
So before we ever get started, we need to do some math, and that needs to be of how big you want this to be. Are you going to actually use it as a purse? Are you going to use this as a grocery bag? These, they're coming in 50-pound bags, so these are really heavy, durable sort of things for you to be able to use that grocery bag piece with it. Are you going to use it to carry your livestock supplies? So first off, you need to figure out what you want the end purpose to be. And then we need to do some math in terms of how tall. And let me go back here to the rabbit bag. We need to think about how tall we want it to be, and we need to think about how wide we want the bottom to be. So if we want this to be 15 inches tall, and maybe we want 3-inch wide on the bottom, because we're going to set some, set lots of things in there, we'll need to think about 18 inches in terms of what we are going to cut to make that work. So with that, after you've got your math completed, we'll be ready to start getting it cut and starting in with the sewing. So when we come back in with the next here after commercial break, then we'll start cutting and getting ourselves sewing.
Your home's exterior is the best defense against harsh weather conditions. With insulated vinyl siding, energy-efficient windows, spray foam insulation, and metal roofing from AquaShield Roofing and Construction, you can protect your home from howling winds and ice-cold temperatures. Don't let Mother Nature interfere with the comfort of your home. Call or visit us online today for a free estimate. AquaShield Roofing and Construction. Our team is dedicated to your complete satisfaction.
Make a difficult choice an easy one with Cedarview Assisted Living's knowledgeable and caring staff. Your loved one will be professionally taken care of as they transition into their new community. With movies, holiday parties, planned exercises, and games, residents will have opportunities every day to enjoy their time at Cedarview. Multiple room styles are available, ensuring a just right fit for your loved one. Come see Cedarview Assisted Living for yourself next to Sternberg Museum. The care you need, the home you want.
Okay, so welcome back as we work on some of those simple first 4-H projects, or simple projects even for any beginning.
Correct.
person.
Yeah, anybody that wants to sew. One of the things that we, during break, Erin and I were talking about is our sons. We've been referring to our daughters. Well, our sons sew too, and this is something that they really like. If you get something that they're interested in, they will, they'll want to finish it, they'll want to sew, and they'll want to do a good job, and then they can show all their friends, and then their friends want to, and the next thing you know, you have a whole class.
Right, exactly, and that's definitely what I've ended up with as I work with a group of 4-Hers. So I'm going to go ahead and have Anna cut this. She's just going to come down slightly above from the bottom. As we talked about in the last episode, or the last section, is that you need to do some math, figuring out how long and you want your bag to be and how wide of bottom you want on the bottom of that. So if you're wanting something that is 15 inches high and with a 3-inch bottom, we need it to be 18 inches long at this point in time. So, and I'm going to interrupt you ever just before you start. Tools of the
tools,
trade.
yes.
Tools of the trade. And I realize that not everybody may have a cutting mat and the ruler and the rotary cutter, maybe because you don't quilt. Grab a yardstick for this and a pair of scissors. Now, when we talked about, nice sewing scissors, I wouldn't use the nice sewing scissors for this because it will dull them there really quickly. Yes,
and you can use, like I said, a ruler and a magic marker. Just draw your line, and the kids can just cut right along it. I have several mats and rulers, and I use it for all sorts of things, and then I change my blades as needed. You just make sure, and in their safety, you have a little thing so that it pops in when you're not using them. You need to hold your ruler down, and then you press really hard and go right across, follow your line, and it's very simple to do. And then what's nice about having this little mat, you can go up to your 18 inches and cut Make sure you have it on the, and I wanted to make sure I had the cow's head or steer's head, whatever that is. There we go. And right, and make sure you're cutting on the mat. Don't cut on your table, or you will have pieces of table in there. Your table will have scratches. Okay. And just cut straight across, and now you have your bag.
You know, sometimes we have to talk a lot about the expense when we start getting into some of these sort of things. And that's why we chose this project, is being that really cheap project, so it's very economical that way. But also it is, you know, if you were to mess up on this, the first time I had my son do this, he sewed it upside down. So the cow is actually, it's like this. This is the
Yes.
bottom. Okay, so we don't worry about ripping out. We don't have to worry about those where, you know, when we were talking about that K-State quilt,
Right.
that is what it is. And we're going to have to salvage our losses. We're going to have to be very particular about what we're doing.
Right. And that's just a good learning experience with them.
Okay, I have to say that now. I gotta make sure I do this right. Okay.
So, okay, one of the things with beginner sewers, as we said, keep them simple, because they will make mistakes, and that's fine. What the judges look for, and often when I judge a county fair, I look at the age of the kid, and I look to see if the project is appropriate for them. And yes, some kids start sewing very young. Some kids start sewing when they get into high school. But so you know, and that's one nice thing about 4-H and their consultation judging, because you can talk to the 4-H'er and say, okay, when did you start sewing? How many years have you sewed? You know, you made just a pillow with nothing on it and you've sewn for 10 years. You need to try something a little more. Or you're a first-year sewer and you made a shirt sleeve blouse that was, you know. You have to kind of look at what their ability for what their age and how many years.
And even if you're not going through that, I mean, we've talked about this as a 4-H, but parents, even if you're doing this with your youth, talk to them. Talk them through the process. If nothing else, just for that interview style sort of thing that's going to go on with them. But the stories or the things they think of while they have this, you can get some great things out of them. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew this, and you can choose, a lot of times as I'm talking about with beginners, it's easiest to follow the edge of the presser foot and to sew this, but as long as you keep it all the same distance, we're all good.
And that's another thing a judge looks for. While Erin's sewing, a judge looks for how straight your seams are. If you have a lot of S's in there, you may need to go back and practice just on paper. Dull's a needle, but you can always change needles out. First thing I normally have my kids do is to sew on lines on paper, and then we get scrap material and we cut for sewing just straight seams, and sewing, reversing when needed, and you don't always have to reverse, but you need to know when. And then we practice curves. So there's all sorts of different things that you need to practice with just to begin to sew. And that's why these feed bags are so nice, because you're feeding your cattle or your horse or your dog all the time. You have a lot of these. So as Erin said, if you sew it upside down, you can always make another one and use it for a grocery bag.
Right, and it's gonna, I mean, if we're keeping a few things out of the landfill, then we're good to go there as well. So on our, now that we've got that sewn across the bottom, we're going to sew square corners. And to make that square corner, we can do two things. We could measure, we could pull this out and line our seams up, and we could make a measurement and sew across here. But the thing I'm going to have Anna do, which is going to be just a little bit difficult here, is go ahead and let's lay that on there, and let's say we take a 3-inch. We're going to make, she's going to measure up 3 inches, and she's going to measure over 3 inches. So we come up just a little bit further from that.
Oh, I missed that 3.
There we go. And we're going to cut around that edge. And we're going to do that to both sides, and then we'll show you how to make a different type of square corner just to keep some of the bulk out of the bottom of the bag. One of the things we haven't touched on with sewing is, there's a lot of, we probably do a lot of the things the same way, but a lot of times there's multiple ways to get to the same end project. So, you know, there's a different way to sew square corners. This is the one way I'm going to show you today, but it doesn't mean that it's the only way for us to do it.
may need to take scissors on this one.
I got a tiny.
Sometimes when you have the corners, it's the best to finish them off with the scissors. And in a little bit, I'm going to have Erin show you her scissors that she's got. I think that's really, really neat. You can attach this, and then you have them all the time, and you can pull them and clip, and you aren't always looking for them. I do that all the time.
Okay, so we are going to then simply fold this from corner to corner, and we're going to sew both of those. And then when we come back, we are going to finish up, put some handles, put a hem around the top of it, and you'll have your bag ready to go.
Some mobile phone providers think they can just take. They'll all take an arm and a leg for a new phone. Got it. And look out if you go over your data limit.
I didn't see that coming.
Unlimited data plans as low as $20 per line. Come into any of our stores for a free, upfront, and honest consultation about your data and wireless needs. Nex-Tech Wireless, the carrier you trust.
What a girl wants in her home kitchen. Ease of use, flexibility, fun, the latest kitchen design, Frigidaire Professional Real Stainless Steel for fewer finger smudges, a French door refrigerator, convection cooking, a quiet dishwasher. Have the staff at Genuine Appliance in Hayes demonstrate new Frigidaire Professional appliances to find what you want. Genuine Appliance at 1224 East 27th in Hayes. Everything a girl wants.
So welcome back to this last segment as we work on some simple 4-H projects. Anna and I are getting ready to finish up this mineral bag purse. And when we left off with the last segment, we were talking about square corners. And so we had made that square, we'd cut them off. All we had done is pinch these and went ahead and sewn along the edge. So that's the only thing we haven't shown you necessarily live is just how we sewed onto that. So then the next thing is to figure out what sort of hem we're going to put across the top. And that's simply going to finish this off for us so that we don't have any fraying pieces. So I'm going to finish that off and I'm going to let you talk about it.
And while Erin's sewing around the top of the bag, I'm going to talk about the handles. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do handles. These we just simply folded over and sewed. You could use a decorative stitch if you want. I wouldn't want to have a real intricate one because of the type of material it is, but you could do a simple decorative stitch, or you can do just like what Erin did here, was a straight stitch. All she did was we folded this over and then she sewed straight down it. And what we cut was 2.5 inches, and that gives a nice size handle just to hold, and it makes it pretty durable that way. Another way you can do it, and if you're doing this for the fair and for 4-H, is what I'd probably recommend, and that is where you would fold it under on both sides and then fold it. So it gives you a finished edge, and it takes a little longer to do, and today we just have a short period of time to go over how to do this, but it gives a nice edge, finished edge, and that's what I would work on for the fair. And I would cut it about 2.5 inches there too, possibly 3, especially if it's a younger child. It makes it easier to turn under. And that's the way this bag was done. Another way you can do, especially if it's a very beginner, you may want to go ahead and buy the canvas handles that you can get in the store. And that way they don't have to have that really tight type of stitch. And you can sew those on. You don't have to make them, and that would be a good thing for a very beginner to do.
And you had somebody use jean material.
Oh yes, that would work really.
Yeah, just as a different way to do this. So once we are there, we are going to attach our handles, and this is where we're going to do a little bit of measurement in terms of how far in from the sides. And one thing when we attach our handles is this is something that's going to take a lot of stress for this. And so we want to reinforce those. And this one, she simply sewed a square in here. So when she went on here, she just sewed a little square. You see a lot of people will do X's, something that's going to just enforce that. And then I guess I can do that really quickly here.
And sometimes it's best if you go ahead and you sew them on the two long sides, not one up and over to the other side, because then that makes it difficult to carry. I have done that and had to take it off. I just actually did it accidentally, but if you do, it's not too hard to rip those out. But it makes it easier, much easier to carry if you put them on the long side together. And
I'm gonna, you also want to play with your length. You know, what works
Correct.
for you in terms of, you know, if I was going to actually use this as a purse, which I'm supposed to give props to my husband for starting this in terms of buying me one of these, is, you know, I probably want a purse a different length than what you're going to want a purse for.
Yes, and that's for whatever it is that you're going to use. If you're using it for a grocery bag, you may want to have the shorter handles. If you're using it for a purse, it may be a little longer. There's no wrong and there's no right way to do these, and that's what's so neat about these. And another neat thing about them is they don't cost much money. Using old jeans, like you said, using the rest of your bag, so you're not throwing much away, and you're helping the environment by not putting these plastic bags back into the landfills. So there's just a lot of neat things and it's such a good project for beginner sewers, and they can make several of these, because every time you buy a new dog food bag, you've got, you can do something with it. And it looks like Erin's got one part of the handle on.
One part, and I wasn't necessarily doing any measuring there, but then this is where I'm going to go ahead and put it in, and this is where I'm going to really work at that adjusting, and then this is where those pins and things may come in handy. One other thing for Anna to show you inside of the purse that she happens to be holding is we've talked specifically about how to do very simple bags. And we're going to keep it simple here today. But this one was lined. And they've just taken some fabric, and they did actually take that jean pocket and put it on the inside like you would want a pocket in a purse. And so that's just another thing that you can do as we're working on increasing that difficulty, or maybe what we're wanting the use for this bag to be. We can do some of those sort of things. I tell people it's going to take roughly a yard of fabric. Now this is going to depend, of course, on the size of the bag, but that yard of fabric is also going to include you making that fabric and taking that fabric and using it for your handles.
And what's the best kind of fabric? Do you want to use gauze or minky?
Oh, well, I don't want all the extra stuff in my purse. So I'm using just regular cotton fabric, keeping it really lightweight so that it sits down in that purse really nicely for me. It's easy to clean up because I'm going to end up getting spills. But this is probably my go-to bag when I'm headed to the state fair or the fair or anything like that, so that if it gets set down in the barns, then it's really easy to clean. One more thing as we get to thinking about bags and the way for you guys to use them is for your buyers. Many of you have premium auctions.
Oh, yes.
And this is one thing that one of the counties did across our state was all of their youth, like let's say for the goat project, for example, they were all feeding kind of that same type of goat feed, and they took those goat bags and they washed them up, and they did then put things down in them to make it as a good buyer's gift. So there's lots of different options that you have.
That's a really neat idea to use. So, and also, that's one way they can see what it was that they bought.
Right.
If they bought a beef, you could use the beef bag. If they bought a goat, sheep, well, I about said dog. They wouldn't buy the dog.
That's not necessarily about the dog.
But still, that would give them a memento there for them, plus other things.
So yeah, definitely lots of different options. I had a mineral dealer because she sold a certain brand of mineral. This is what she did for all of the wives of the customers, for all of her female customers as well. But so there's just tons of endless opportunities. We hope that you have taken away from this great simple ways for you to start sewing. We understand that it's a great thing. Both as our youth and our 4-H, and whether we've talked a lot about fair projects today, but we also realize as schools go to the project-based learning and we're having some of getting those sewing machines back out, we want you to know how to take care of them, but we want you to be able to use them as well. So
correct.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition, and make sure, if you have questions, make sure that you contact your local extension office.